Did Priscilla Presley really cut off Elvis's own family out of jealousy? That's the shocking claim whispered for decades, and now one of Elvis's own cousins is finally breaking the silence. Danny Smith, who grew up inside the Presley world, has shared a candid explanation that could completely change how you see the family's story. What he revealed isn't just surprising, it's emotional, raw, and may even make you question everything you thought you knew about Priscilla's relationship with Elvis's closest relatives. Stay with us because the real reason behind this long-standing rift isn't what most people imagine, and we'll get to it soon. When Elvis Presley passed away in 1977, the world didn't just lose the king of rock and roll. It was as if the heartbeat of an entire family stopped. Graceland, once alive with music, laughter, and Elvis's larger-than-life presence, suddenly felt hollow. The Presley family was left to navigate their grief under the weight of global attention, while behind closed doors, their world was unraveling in ways the public never fully saw. For those who lived within the walls of Graceland, life would never be the same again. In the midst of that heartbreaking transition, Priscilla Presley seemed to quietly step back from Elvis's extended family. She remained close to Vernon Presley, Elvis's father, but her connection to the rest of the clan appeared to grow distant. To outsiders, this might have looked like the natural drifting apart that comes after divorce and tragedy. But to those inside the Presley circle, the distance carried heavier undertones. Why would someone who had once been so deeply woven into the family suddenly keep her space, just when shared grief might have brought them closer together? That's where Danny Smith enters the picture. Danny isn't just another distant cousin. He grew up at Elvis's side, the son of Billy Smith, Elvis's closest confidant. Today, Danny runs the Memphis Mafia Kid YouTube channel, where he speaks openly about life with Elvis and the private family moments fans never got to see. His voice carries the weight of someone who lived it, not someone repeating rumors. And when Danny was asked about why Priscilla seemed to cut ties with much of the Presley family, his candid response left more questions than answers, and stirred up a mystery that has haunted the Presley legacy ever since. Priscilla Presley's story with Graceland began long before she became Elvis's wife. At just 17 years old, she left behind her life in West Germany and moved into the Presley estate after Elvis convinced her parents it was the right decision. For a teenager stepping into the world of the most famous entertainer alive, Graceland was more than a mansion. It was a kingdom where every hallway echoed with music, laughter, and the daily presence of Elvis himself. It was here that she grew into adulthood, shaping her identity not only as Elvis's companion, but as a young woman navigating the pressures of life in the public eye. By the time she and Elvis married in 1967, Priscilla wasn't just a guest in Graceland. She was part of its very fabric. The home buzzed with family, friends, and the infamous Memphis Mafia, and Priscilla was right in the middle of it all. Even when she and Elvis split their time between Graceland and their glamorous residence in Holmby Hills, California, the Tennessee estate always remained the center of the Presley universe. Priscilla had been woven tightly into the family's daily rhythms, celebrations, and struggles, sharing in a life that only a select few were ever privileged to experience. But in 1973, everything changed. The divorce between Elvis and Priscilla didn't just mark the end of their marriage, it redrew the invisible lines within the Presley family. Where once she had been immersed in the household, her place suddenly shifted to something more distant. The laughter-filled nights and shared family moments that had defined her early years at Graceland faded into something more formal, more fragile. And while many assumed the separation was a natural consequence of divorce, the reality was far more complex, and it set the stage for the distance that would define her relationship with Elvis's family after his death. Danny Smith, Elvis's cousin, has never shied away from speaking openly about what life inside the Presley circle was really like. From his perspective, the distance that grew between Priscilla and the family wasn't just a matter of moving on after divorce, it carried something deeper. Danny recalls how Priscilla seemed uneasy with the closeness Elvis shared with his cousin Billy Smith, Danny's own father. That bond between Elvis and Billy was one of loyalty and brotherhood, and according to Danny, it was a connection Priscilla never fully embraced. As he put it, it was plainly obvious she didn't want to be around us. She didn't want Lisa to be around us. Words like those don't just come from speculation. They come from someone who lived it, someone who felt that distance firsthand. What makes his recollection stand out is the suggestion of something more personal at play. Divorce often creates separation. Ex-spouses rarely remain entangled in the lives of extended family. Most people might expect a degree of distance after such a split. But in Danny's telling, it wasn't just circumstance pulling Priscilla away. Instead, he hints at jealousy, an emotion that complicates the usual explanation of drifting apart. It paints a picture of tension, not born from necessity, but from feelings that simmered quietly beneath the surface, shaping choices that affected everyone involved. This angle sets the Presley story apart from the typical post-divorce narrative. It wasn't simply about closing a chapter or protecting boundaries. It was about relationships so strong they could spark unease in those left on the outside. And when you add in the unique pressure of living under Elvis's shadow, the scrutiny, the expectations, the weight of being part of his inner circle, the idea that emotions like jealousy could change family dynamics becomes even more compelling. Danny's account leaves us wondering just how much those hidden feelings influenced the fracture that followed, and why the echoes of that decision still linger decades later. When Elvis Presley passed away in 1977, no one felt the shockwaves more personally than his only daughter, Lisa Marie. At just 9 years old, her world was upended in an instant. The man who had been the center of her universe, her playmate, and her protector was suddenly gone. She later described how everything totally changed after that moment, and it's not hard to imagine why. The grand halls of Graceland, once filled with her father's presence, no longer felt like home. Instead of laughter and late-night adventures with Elvis, silence and absence took their place. After his death, Lisa moved to California to live full-time with her mother, Priscilla. From that point forward, her connection to the Presley clan began to fade. There were still occasional visits and phone calls, but the closeness she once shared with her cousins and extended family members slowly dissolved. For a child already navigating grief, the move west created a physical and emotional distance that only grew as the years went on. What had once been her family base in Memphis became, over time, more of a memory than a reality. Danny Smith, Elvis's cousin, has often shared his perspective on this shift. From his view, the separation wasn't entirely natural. He believes that Priscilla had a strong hand in shaping Lisa's path away from Elvis's side of the family. According to Danny, Priscilla preferred to keep her daughter from becoming too connected to the people who had been closest to Elvis, including his cousins. Whether this was out of protection, practicality, or something more complicated, the result was the same. Lisa Marie grew up with less and less involvement in the Presley family that had once surrounded her father. And yet, Lisa never completely cut her ties to Graceland. In fact, her connection to the estate was deeply emotional, even if it was complicated. She spoke openly about how it always felt like her father's place, not hers, and in her 2003 song, Lights Out, she hauntingly referred to it as her forever resting place. Those words revealed just how intertwined her identity remained with the mansion in Memphis. For Lisa, Graceland was not just a house or a tourist attraction. It was a symbol of love, loss, and a life forever split in two after 1977. For years, fans have speculated about why Priscilla Presley seemed to grow distant from Elvis's family after his passing. Danny Smith, who lived through it all, offered a perspective that added a surprising layer to the story. He suggested that jealousy may have played a role, specifically over Elvis's deep connection with certain family members, like his cousin Billy Smith. It wasn't just a matter of divorce or moving on with life. Danny believed these emotions shaped the choices Priscilla made, leaving a lasting impact on the bonds within the Presley circle. This sense of distance didn't stop with Priscilla. According to Danny, it extended to Lisa Marie as well. While Lisa adored her father and cherished her childhood memories at Graceland, she too drifted away from many of her Presley relatives as she grew older. Danny implied that Priscilla's influence was a powerful factor, guiding Lisa's path and keeping her from forging stronger ties with the family on Elvis's side. Whether intentional or not, the result was the same. The Presley clan was left fractured, with connections that had once been unshakable now fading into silence. The emotional cost of all this can't be understated. Without Elvis, Graceland no longer carried the same sense of belonging for his family. What was once a warm, bustling home filled with laughter and music became something more like a monument to a man they all loved but could no longer reach. For Lisa, for Priscilla, and for the cousins who had stood at Elvis's side, the loss was more than just the man. It was the unraveling of a family's unity. And that's the haunting truth that lingers when you look back at how things changed after the king's death. Today, decades after Elvis's passing, the echoes of that family divide are still felt. Riley Keough, Lisa Marie's daughter and Elvis's granddaughter, now stands as the sole trustee of Graceland and the steward of the Presley legacy. While she carries that responsibility with grace, even Danny Smith has admitted that contact between Riley and the extended Presley family has been almost non-existent. It's as if the threads that once bound the family together have continued to unravel, leaving Graceland not as a home filled with family gatherings, but as a carefully preserved landmark of a time long gone. The heartbreaking truth is that Elvis's death didn't just rob the world of a legendary performer, it also fractured the very family that had once orbited so closely around him. What should have been a time for shared grief and unity instead seemed to mark the start of division and distance. For fans, the Presley name is synonymous with music, charisma, and history. But for those who lived it, the story is also marked by silence, separations, and relationships that never quite healed. The tragedy lies not only in losing the king, but in losing the closeness of the family that carried his name. And so, we're left with a question that still sparks debate today. Was Priscilla simply protecting herself and Lisa from the complications of staying tied to Elvis's extended family? Or was there something more personal, perhaps jealousy, that played a role in this lasting split? We'd love to hear what you think. Share your thoughts in the comments below, because the Presley legacy is more than just history. It's a mystery that continues to unfold.